The first beer up this year is Pumpkinhead Ale from Shipyard Brewing Co out of Portland, Maine. Pumpkinhead is a wheat ale that sits at 4.7% ABV and 18 IBUs, and is brewed with Willamette and Sapphire hops, as well as top fermenting English yeast. From Shipyard's description of this beer, we can see that this pumpkin ale was brewed with at least cinnamon and nutmeg, which is fairly standard for the style, but further reading indicates that they use other spices in what they're calling the proprietary blend. The page also reveals that this beer wasn't intended to be drunk as is. Apparently, it is to be drunk in a pint glass rimmed with sugar and cinnamon, and can be paired with a shot of spiced rum or vanilla vodka. I ended up drinking this beer from a glass without the proposed accompaniments, as I did not see the information anywhere in the bottle, and I didn't keep the case long enough to check. With that being said, this beer will have to be reviewed on its own merits. Pouring from a 12-ounce glass bottle into my brandy snifter, Pumpkinhead Ale is a beautiful gold leading towards an amber tint. The head grows slightly into a bubbly concentration before almost instantly fading away to a small ring around the inside of the glass, and with such little retention, there was no lacing to be seen. The color and clarity of this beer make this an absolute beauty to look at, but I think its lack of head retention or any kind of lacing is a mar on its magnificent facade. Up front, Pumpkinhead gives off some fairly standard aromas with malts and the graininess of the wheat. In place of hops, the subtlety of spices used in the beer peek through on the tail end. Unfortunately, the aromas falter and quickly fall off once you begin drinking. Picking up where the aroma left off, a bit of the bitter from the hops and the grain of the wheat are the first flavors to hit the tongue, then taking further cues from the aroma and subtly introducing the pumpkin spices towards the end. As the bitterness fades away with each sip, the subtle spices become more pronounced along with the malts, compounded by the now warming beer. Pumpkinhead has a light body with a finish in between dry and wet, as well as some light medium carbonation. This combination leads to a nice crisp finish that is rather refreshing. I know for a fact that I've had this beer in the past, but I can't really remember much about it, and after reviewing it this year, I can see why that is. This beer is very middle of the road. It plays its underlying style, which is the wheat ale, very safely by not making any aspect of it too bold. In doing so, the actual beer is less of a focus than the pumpkin spices, which, while adding to the overall experience, doesn't complement it. It seems as though the beer was simply used as a vessel for the pumpkin spices, which I believe to be the case because the beer simply falls off after a bottle or two, leaving behind pumpkin spice carbonated alcohol. While I can certainly say that this beer should leave me disappointed, the downplayed nature of it made it really rather refreshing. The beer was light and crisp, and the pumpkin spices were just subtly enough not to be off-putting. Honestly, I'd say that this would make for a good introductory pumpkin beer for those that may be interested in the style but aren't really too sure if they'd want to actually spend money to try it. I'm not going to overlook the fact that there was some recommended additions to this beer which may make the drinking experience much better, but that will have to wait until next year, which I know I'll have a chance to try because Shipyard has been brewing this beer since '95 and I never fail to find it each and every year. Finally, after a careful analysis, the overall score for this beer comes in at 2.7 out of 5. While my 2-point category isn't necessarily a bad thing, beers within it being serviceable, this beer does edge above halfway to 3 points, making it an overall more enjoyable beer than most beers I would place in a 2 category. Normally I'd weigh the beer's pros and cons and place it firmly in either a hard 2 or 3, but I decided to leave it with a decimal value so we can go ahead and rank it against all the other pumpkin beers that I'll be trying. Seeing as how this is the first pumpkin beer I've had this year, it of course takes the top and only spot. With that, we'll bring this review to an end, and I'll see you in the next one.